Sid Meier's Civilization is a 4X strategy series that has stood the test of time, delighting players with endless possibilities for building their own civilization from scratch. Expanding your fledgling group of tribespeople in 4000 BCE into an empire where the sun never sets takes real investment. And along the way, you'll experience plenty of rewarding gameplay loops that tie the game's many systems together in satisfying ways. If you're still new to the Civilization series, or Civilization VII in particular, I highly recommend checking out my beginner's guide first. Otherwise, welcome to my Victory Guide series. In this video, I'll be showcasing one of my favorite builds for achieving a military victory, beginning with the Antiquity Age. We'll look at why this leader and civilization pair together so well, the key objectives that should shape your decisions throughout the age, and the mindset behind making the build successful. Finally, I'll walk you through highlights from one of my own playthroughs to show how those ideas come together in a real game. Some of my strategies worked exactly as planned, others not so much. That's part of what makes Civilization VII so much fun. Every world presents new opportunities and new challenges, and learning to adapt is where the real magic happens. I'm Marvin, and welcome to Buddy Up Gaming. Before we kick off this Antiquity Age showcase, let's first review how the military victory condition works after the Test of Time update. Unlike scientific victories, where you are racing toward a fixed innovation milestone, military victories are all about building a lead over your opponents. To win, your Dominion score must exceed the second place civilization by a specific multiplier. That threshold begins at 6x halfway through the exploration age and gradually decreases until reaching 1.25x toward the end of the modern age. Dominion can be earned in several different ways, but the foundation is simple: control settlements. You'll gain Dominion primarily from holding settlements, with additional bonuses awarded for controlling original capitals, settlements located in distant lands, and capture settlements, especially those taken from civilizations with an opposing ideology. In other words, a successful military victory isn't just about building the biggest army. It's about using that army to shape the map, expand your influence, and ensure your civilization controls the settlements that matter most. Winning a military victory ultimately comes down to one thing: making sure your army is stronger than everyone else's. And when playing as Tecumseh, your units can hit harder than a truck. Tecumseh's unique ability grants +1 combat strength to infantry and ranged units for every city-state you control. That bonus can quickly become absurd as you convert independent powers into city-states, creating an army that is capable of punching far above its weight. Converting an independent into a city-state also provides additional benefits beyond military strength. Each conversion grants 2 Dominion points, along with +1 food to towns and +1 production to cities. Those bonuses naturally support a taller playstyle, where you can focus your empire's resources on producing a steady stream of powerful military units. Of course, Tecumseh's incredible combat potential depends on one important factor: successfully converting as many independents into city-states as possible. Thankfully, this is where his diplomatic strengths shine. When playing as Tecumseh, all independents begin with a friendly status, immediately giving you a head start towards achieving suzerainty. This not only reduces the time required to convert them, but also gives you a significant advantage over competing civilizations that begin with a hostile relationship. Completing a full sweep of independence to maximize Tecumseh's bonuses can still feel like a daunting challenge, but his diplomatic leader classification gives you the tools needed to make it achievable. Diplomatic leaders frequently encounter events that reward diplomatic attribute points. When paired with a diplomatic civilization, you can often secure 2 early points. That allows you to adopt the bonus, providing +50% influence towards initiating and progressing the befriend independent action, accelerating your expansion of city-state allies. The result is a unique military playstyle. Tecumseh doesn't start the game by immediately conquering everything in sight. Instead, he builds quietly, establishing diplomatic relationships and strengthening his empire before unleashing a devastating military campaign. Once those independent powers have become city-states and your army has reached its full potential, the world changes. The limiting factor is no longer whether you can win battles, it's deciding which settlements are worth taking. Because your settlement cap will always limit how much territory you can directly control, avoid conquering every settlement you encounter. Prioritize original capitals for their dominion value, along with settlements that provide strategic positioning or meaningful benefits to your empire's growth. And of all the civilizations available after the Test of Time update, none supports Tecumseh's military victory ambitions better than Greece. The synergy between these two is honestly ridiculous. Let's start with the obvious. Greece provides the strategoi tradition, which grants +1 combat strength to infantry units for every city-state you control. And yes, that stacks with Tecumseh's unique leader ability. When combined, these bonuses create one of the rare situations where your military can completely overwhelm deity AI units. There was even a time when military city-states provided a suzerainty bonus that offered the same combat strength increase. During that era, I had embarked hoplites, absorbing attacks from enemy archers like the ridiculously overpowered soldiers from the movie 300. The current version is a little more balanced, since that suzerainty bonus now only applies to militaristic city-states. But even with that change, the result is still an incredibly powerful military engine, just slightly less absurd. And the fun doesn't stop there. The other half of this build is Greece's diplomatic strength. As a diplomatic civilization, Greece provides opportunities to earn diplomatic attribute points, which are exactly what we need to accelerate our independent conversions. In fact, when playing Greece as Tecumseh, reaching the 2 attribute points needed for the +50% influence bonus is surprisingly straightforward. Forming an alliance and completing the Symmachia unique civic gets you there. Even better, on the way, you'll also complete the Ecclesia civic, which unlocks Xenia, a tradition that provides the exact same influence bonus, and yes, those bonuses stack too. The result is an influence engine that is almost tailor-made for Tecumseh. In the Antiquity Age, Greece also provides +3 influence on the palace, along with +2 influence on the unique Parthenon building when placed on rough terrain. Combined with Tecumseh's ability to begin with friendly relationships towards independence, the process of converting city-states becomes dramatically easier. Sweeping the map and securing every available city-state isn't just possible, it's the entire identity of this build. The only times I've ever failed to convert an independent into a city-state weren't because I lacked the influence to win the competition, it was because I simply hadn't discovered that independence early enough. So remember, with Tecumseh and Greece, exploration isn't just about finding new territory, it's about finding your next source of power. Playing toward a military victory is fairly straightforward on the surface. Build a powerful army and use it to expand your dominion. However, the challenge isn't simply winning battles, it's deciding which battles are worth fighting. As mentioned earlier, your biggest limitation will always be your settlement cap. So you need to be intentional about which settlements you plan to capture during each age. Every conquest should serve a purpose, whether that's increasing your dominion score, securing a strategic location, or weakening a future rival. During the Antiquity Age, your first priority should be scouting the map and identifying the location of every original capital. These settlements are especially valuable because they provide additional dominion and are often the strongest targets for future expansion. After that, keep an eye on how foreign civilizations develop. Pay attention to where they establish new settlements, and make a mental note of which ones would make valuable additions to your empire later in the age. When playing Greece as Tecumseh, your Antiquity Age settlement cap will reach 7, meaning you can comfortably control at least 8 settlements by the end of the age without suffering major penalties. With our focus on maximizing dominion, the majority of those slots should go to capture settlements. Finally, keep a close eye on the diplomatic landscape. Not every civilization is an equally good target. When choosing who to fight, prioritize civilizations that are rapidly expanding or developing into major threats, because removing them early prevents them from becoming much harder opponents in later ages. On the other hand, civilizations with powerful allies should generally be avoided at the beginning, unless those alliances are positioned in a way that won't threaten your military campaign. The best military players aren't the ones who fight the most wars. They're the ones who choose the right wars. This military victory showcase was completed on a small Pangea map against 5 deity AI opponents. On deity, the AI receives some pretty ridiculous bonuses, so success requires making intentional decisions from the very beginning. Thankfully, while the AI can produce impressive numbers, its strategy isn't always the most creative. Once you understand its priorities, there are plenty of opportunities to exploit weaknesses that a human player would spot immediately. When pursuing a military victory, I generally prefer playing tall, which on a small map means establishing a few strong cities supported by towns. For my cities, I prioritize locations with strong adjacency bonuses for science, culture, and gold buildings, along with plenty of high production tiles for improvements. The big difference compared to other victory types is that I don't need to spend the Antiquity Age developing a massive empire from scratch. Since many of my future cities will come from conquest, I typically only found and convert one town into a city myself. Every additional city comes from capturing valuable settlements from my opponents. Scouting is absolutely critical in the early game, so I opened this run by producing 3 scouts before transitioning into my first settler. Normally, delaying military production this long can be dangerous if a hostile independent decides to pay your capital a visit. Thankfully, Tecumseh's ability to begin with friendly relationships toward independence made that a non-concern. Unfortunately, my starting location was far from ideal. I only found one nearby location with enough rough terrain to support a strong city, and even that location had limited room for expansion due to the surrounding mountains, coasts, and navigable river. A little more exploration revealed something ironic. My starting position was also incredibly isolated. Isabella was positioned far to the southeast, behind a narrow choke point. Ashoka and Jose Rizal were slightly closer to the south, but they were separated from me by a mountain range and 2 navigable rivers that would make an early invasion extremely difficult. Given the situation, I decided to ally with Ibn Battuta and secure a diplomatic attribute point and focus my first conquest on Catherine. My concern was that if I allowed her too much time and space to expand, she could become an unstoppable powerhouse later in the game. There is nothing quite like your first conquest when playing Greece as Tecumseh. By the time I joined Ibn in his war against Catherine, I had achieved suzerainty over 5 city-states, only about half of the available independence on the map. Even so, Tecumseh's leader ability, combined with Greece Stratego tradition, provided a massive +10 combat strength advantage. The result was overwhelming. 9 turns after declaring war, Catherine's capital had fallen. Shortly afterward, Ibn eliminated her final settlement, removing my first major rival from the game entirely. Next, I turned my attention toward Jose Rizal. At first glance, he looked like an ideal target. He was relatively weak, and his capital contained the Pyramids of the Sun Wonder, along with several valuable quarters. By this point, I had researched bronze working and its mastery, while also adding 2 more city-states to my growing coalition. Even without siege units, my upgraded infantry tore through his defenses like a battering ram. Unfortunately, while I was focused on Jose, Ashoka was quietly preparing a much more difficult challenge. Not only had he heavily fortified his capital, but he had also constructed the Mausoleum of Halicarnassus, easily one of the most frustrating wonders to face when playing aggressively. The Mausoleum revives a defeated cavalry unit for the first time it falls, bringing it back at 30% health. On deity difficulty, where civilizations can produce new cavalry units every turn, this meant every battle against Ashoka became a never-ending cycle. Even when my army could eliminate his units in a single attack, I would immediately face a fresh replacement alongside the revived ghost of the unit I had just defeated. Just like my previous wars, I still held a massive combat strength advantage against Ashoka, but the combination of fortified walls and endless cavalry reinforcements slowly drained my momentum, and I wasn't able to capture his capital before the end of the age. Fortunately, this is where adapting matters. I loaded an earlier save to investigate what had gone wrong and discovered something important. Ashoka hadn't built the mausoleum in his capital. He had built it in Tecumseh. That changed everything. Instead of trying to break through the heavily fortified walls of Pataliputra, I targeted Tecumseh, which only had 2 urban centers to overcome. Capturing it and holding that position until I could negotiate peace proved far more manageable. With the mausoleum finally removed from the equation, I positioned my infantry along the border of Pataliputra and prepared for the final push. The exploration age would finish the conquest, but the foundation had already been built. That wraps up my favorite military victory build for the Antiquity Age. Hopefully this guide has given you a better understanding of why Tecumseh and Greece work so well together, and how the foundation you build early can turn into a truly unstoppable military force. As you've seen, winning a military victory isn't just about having the biggest army. It's about building strategic advantages, choosing your targets carefully, and using your strength at the right moment to reshape the world around you. Of course, the Antiquity Age is only the beginning. In the next video, we'll carry this civilization into the Exploration Age, where new lands, new rivals, and new military challenges will test whether our carefully built coalition can continue expanding its dominion. If you're looking to complete your first military victory, you won't want to miss the next chapter of this campaign. Thanks so much for watching. If you enjoyed this video, please leave a like and subscribe to Buddy Up Gaming for more family-friendly reviews, guides, and other gaming content. Take care out there.